Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, and we've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. It was the final game for teams in the Big Ten today, whenever they played. And so we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about Indiana's major win over Ohio State, pretty much cementing them into the NCAA tournament. In my opinion, we're also going to talk about Penn State's massive, and I mean massive, upset over Wisconsin, and then Maryland, Northwestern, UCLA, just absolutely spanking USC. Normally, I lead the show with the game that just went on, my instant reaction, but this game was such a spanking that I'm not even going to lead the show with USC and UCLA. I'm going to leave that for the end. Indiana, I think, is the biggest story out of this because of their NCAA tournament berth. Penn State, a huge story as well with their upset, but not a lot of stuff changes with that. Wisconsin, what they they're still going to be in the Big Ten tournament, all that stuff and everything. So not a whole lot changes there, but in the very least, Penn State they get that win over Wisconsin, and it's a good upset, but not much to talk about there. Well, we will talk about it game wise. There's a lot to talk about, but big picture, future, not much stuff to talk about there. So we'll kind of just talk about the game. This Ohio State Indiana stuff. This is interesting to talk about. I am JR. I'm your host. I'm going to be the only one talking with you tonight. Don't have a guest or anybody with me, so we're going to do this solo. And I've obviously watched every single game today. I have my thoughts. I have everything written out on my notes. So whether I have people in the comments commenting with me, or if this is just going to be me on my own, I will be here. Please do feel free on these shows where it's more just me. I do my best to try to get to the comments, but sometimes it is more difficult as I'm not always able to vet what is being said as I am going live. So please do bear with me. If you comment, I do try to get to those, but cannot guarantee that I will, just based off of the way some of that stuff goes. And like right now, I am currently talking to you as I am also retweeting the show and everything and getting that information out there. Okay, let's talk about Indiana, Ohio State. Indiana defeats Ohio State 66-60. Kind of felt like this was going to happen. I went on an Indiana show to preview the game, and I felt like Indiana had the advantage. I still thought it was going to be a close game. I thought somewhere between 3 to 5 points. Indiana eventually pulls ahead, wins this one by 6 points, and I thought it was a really cool thing for Mike Woodson and his guys. Obviously, somebody who's an Ohio State fan stinks for me. We'll get to them, but I want to start with Indiana. The legacy for Mike Woodson, stuff like that. I saw a lot of people on social media talking about, well, these people just wanted him fired, 3 months, 2 months ago, a month ago, whatever. And yes, they did want him fired. They were chanting fire Mike Woodson. But I also think that there is a connection that Mike Woodson has to this program, to this university, playing under Bob Knight, that not everybody understands, right? Fans are upset because their team wasn't playing well, but at the end of the day, knowing Indiana fans myself, being at those games, living in Indiana, I see the admiration for people that people do have for Mike Woodson and his legacy. And it was an emotional day for him, an emotional day for the seniors. And if you follow this Indiana team, it's overall emotional because this team really became what many thought they could have played toward by playing the seniors, playing the Indiana guys who get it, who know it. That's not to disparage the other guys on the team. It's just these other guys, they get it more, right? We're not disparaging Caden Carlisle and Miles Rice and those guys. We're just saying Anthony Leal, Luke Goody, Trey Galloway, like these guys get it. These guys get Indiana basketball. And there's somebody that Mike Woodson obviously is relating to in another way. He wouldn't be playing them so much. He wouldn't be putting them in the situations that he's putting them in if he didn't have that type of admiration and respect for those kind of players. And it was Trey Galloway tonight that won the game for them. The big shots down the stretch. We can talk about Ohio State and how some of the defense was poor there, but that one shot that he hit near the end there, I mean, that was just a shot, right? That was just pull up, hit the shot, give give your team the distance they needed with the lead to be able to go out and win that game. I mean, overall, Trey Galloway, his impact, his resilience, his clutch performance, everything, especially the game sealing 3-pointer that I just mentioned. Despite some of the fan criticism for Mike Woodson and him in the past, I think everybody is going to remember Trey Galloway as a hard competitor, somebody who really stayed with this team. People aren't going to remember him like Trace Jackson Davis, right? They're not going to remember him like that, but he does need to be remembered and thought about for what he was able to do for this team to end this year, playing with such passion, playing so aggressively at times, but even in a game where things weren't going his way for a good amount of it, right? He had 4 fouls in this game. Things weren't going his way. In the first half, Trey Galloway had 7 points. He was 3 for 7 from the field, 0 for 1 from 3. There was some frustration there. He did have 3 assists, but there was some frustration there. Well, it comes back in the second half, 9 points, 3 of 6 from 3, 3 rebounds. No, I apologize. 1 rebound, 3 assists, and he did have 2 turnovers, but overall, you could see his passion and everything else playing out there. So, Mike Woodson did express a little bit of, sadness about him stepping down, and that was rather interesting. I don't think this means he's coming back by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. So Mike Woodson, he can express it all he wants. And I think there are other fans that are sad that it had to come to this. But overall, this is just the way the program is going at this point. And I don't think if Mike Woodson tried to come back, this was still a team that had much higher aspirations than just making the NCAA tournament. This was still a team that was put together to contend in the Big Ten, and they did not do that. They were not able to do that this season. And although they got some good wins down the stretch, and although they gave the fans a lot to cheer for, this was a team that still got blown out at home by Illinois, was not a contender, and for good parts of this season really frustrated the fans and really frustrated what they saw from this team, because this team was more talented than what they showed. And there are fans concerned about, if you did bring Mike Woodson back, not even saying that's a possibility, but if you did, what's that going to look like with him being able to utilize talent, run an offense, that kind of stuff. So, but overall, I mean, tonight, if we're just talking about this game, it was a physical basketball game. I do think that maybe the refereeing was a little bit unfair, but I mean, this is college basketball. You're going to get the home whistle. I don't know what people want to talk about and say and also Ohio State fans getting mad that Indiana got so many more free throws. Have you watched your team the past, this entire season? Sean Stewart is a foul machine. He's a foul magnet. Micah Parrish, sure, maybe he doesn't get 4 fouls every single game, but this was an Ohio State team that for parts of this game was panicking and playing out of control, and that's what you get when you play like that, right? Now there were some fouls that we can talk about on the other end, but again, you play someplace else, you're gonna have the home whistle. What it comes back to is Ohio State shouldn't have lost the game at home against Indiana. And that was kind of coming off the time when things were really, really bad for Mike Woodson, and he needed a win. They got that win in overtime. I think it was 76-75 or something like that. If you're an Ohio State fan, you should have won before when you were at home and you did have the home whistle. You didn't have it. And that's the way college basketball goes. It's one of the things that is not guaranteed, but is almost assumed in every situation. If you go on the road, the other team is more than likely going to get the favorable whistle. Whether, for whatever reason, we can argue about that till the cows come home, but for whatever reason, the home team is going to get the more favorable whistle. The offensive performance for Indiana, I mean, this was a grinded out game to start. This was a game for Indiana when they were getting down low, they were getting in the paint, and Ohio State was just doing a really good job with their interior defense. Indiana was not making enough plays, but they were getting offensive rebounds. They were getting second chance points. Indiana finishes this game with 14 offensive rebounds to Ohio State's 8. The point is, Indiana was just more physical in this game. Indiana was more physical. Indiana wanted this game more, even though Ohio State had probably some more talented players and probably some more athletic players. Indiana just took it to them. They were more physical, and they didn't get called for the fouls. So what do you want to do, right? Like, if you're playing a certain way, you're not getting called for those fouls, you're going to play that way. So credit to Indiana, their physicality, what they brought to the table, what their team brought, and everything else. I mean, this was a culture win for Indiana. This was a bunch of dudes who care about this program, who care about wanting to continue to play together more than I believe Ohio State, right? Ohio State has guys who want to keep playing together. Don't get me wrong. Bruce Thornton, Micah Parrish, like they have guys in this team who want to keep playing. Indiana just had guys who wanted it more, it looked like to me. And I'm not dogging Bruce Thornton and those guys. We'll get to Ohio State here in a minute, but at the end of the day, Indiana, their dude stepped up. Luke Goody, he stepped up with shooting making 8 of 10 free throws in this game. Only shot 1 of 7 from the field, but he got to the free throw line. He was able to make his free throws. That was a huge thing for Ohio State. They weren't making their free throws, and they didn't get to the free throw line. John Mobley Jr. shot 8 3-pointers in this game. He tried to drive a couple times, and maybe he thought he should have been fouled, but guess what? You only drove a couple, 3 or 4 times maybe at most. So, that's what you get. That's what you expect. So from a guy who's shooting 90+% from three this season, he has to do more of that. Anyway, staying on Indiana, we'll get to Ohio State here in a minute. I think overall, Indiana solidified their NCAA tournament bid, dreams, whatever you want to call it. They are the number 9 seed in the Big Ten tournament, so they're going to be facing Oregon. That's a huge plus for them. I think if you get at least one bye, you have a chance of winning the NCAA tournament. The bad news with that, though, is you're going to be playing Michigan State in the second round. So you're going to be playing Oregon, who won all of their non-conference games and who's been playing better lately. We'll see how they play against Washington tomorrow. But then on top of that, you have to play Michigan State. Now, Indiana did beat Michigan State, so this is a matchup that I don't know if Michigan State loves, but at the end of the day, it's really hard to beat a team twice. So, and we saw that with Indiana in this game. It was really hard for them to beat Ohio State twice. They got it done. Maybe they can get it done against Michigan State, but Michigan State's also playing really good ball right now, so I would not bet on it. All right, for Ohio State overall, they've lost a number of close games this season. I think games that were decided by 5 points or less and overtime. I saw a stat that Ohio State is like 5-6 or something like that. So they've played 11 games this season that either ended by a margin of 5 points or less or went into overtime. So for Ohio State to be 5-6 this season on that, it's pretty incredible how many close games they've been in. Now, it's an improvement, right? This is an improvement over Chris Holtmann. Chris Holtmann's team wilted in the final minutes all the time in these close games. Now, there's something to be said about Ohio State not doing a great job of keeping leads and having these close games come, right? So maybe you talk about that. But overall, this is also college basketball, right? This is also a young team for the most part in Ohio State. Yes, you have experience in Bruce Thornton, Micah Parrish, but you also have a true freshman in John Mobley Jr. out there. You also have Sean Stewart, Aaron Bradshaw. You have a number of guys out there. Devin Royal is still pretty young. You have a number of guys out there that are still pretty young and still getting used to things. And so when you go up against premier competition, this is the Big Ten. The Big Ten is the second best, conference in all of college basketball. If the SEC wasn't so good this year, they would be the best, but the SEC is just on another level this year. It's just the way it is. But the Big Ten is the second best. The Big Ten should be getting 10 or 11 bids into the NCAA tournament. No ifs and buts about it. That's the way it should be. If that does not happen, if you see a team like Drake lose their NCAA or their conference tournament game and then not making the NCAA, and then making the NCAA tournament over a Big Ten team, that's a travesty. That is an absolute travesty if that happens. You want to know why? Because Ohio State and other Big Ten teams scheduled hard in their non-conference. And if you are going to start rewarding teams like Drake, who did not schedule hard in their non-conference, they played 5 quad 1 games all season long. 5 quad 1 games. If you're going to start rewarding teams like that, then you're going to see Ohio State just screw the hard conference. Their probably worst loss of the season was Pitt. who I came on here and said Pitt was not a very good basketball team, and I didn't think they were going to compete for the ACC. I think they're better than maybe I thought they would have been, but they also weren't as good as other people thought. Other people thought they were going to contend for the ACC this season. They're not, and they haven't. But this is still a team in the ACC that is, probably middle of the pack or better, and that's another Power 4, Power 5 conference. It's not the Big Ten. It's not, the it's probably close to that. It's not the Big Ten. It's not the SEC, but it's still a big conference that has big teams and good players in it. For Ohio State, defensive breakdowns happened late in that game. I thought the defense was pretty good with what they were doing, but defensive breakdowns did happen. The Trey Galloway 3 that sealed it, that's just a great shot by Trey Galloway. He was far back from the 3-point line. He made a shot. It is what it is, but Ohio State should have done a better job on defense leading up to that. The 3 that he hit before that, they could have defended that better. But unfortunately, that's how it goes, right? We try to put it on this one moment at the end of the game and say, oh, he did that. And yes, that he did do that, but Ohio State had the opportunity. They had enough of a lead to say we can hang on to this, but the final 6 minutes of the game, they had no field goals in the final 5 minutes and 55 seconds. So, not exactly 6 minutes, but the final 5 minutes and 55 seconds, they had no field goals in the game. They were one of their final 11 field goals in this game. And that's why I say Indiana just wanted it more. Indiana was more aggressive, getting offensive rebounds. Indiana was more aggressive at the end of the game. They were more physical. I felt like Ohio State was relying too much on their athleticism at times rather than trying to match the physicality of Indiana. I do think that was hampered a bit just because the whistles seemed to favor Indiana a little bit more, but you can't worry about that, right? Like, and I never blame the refs. Like, it has to be truly terrible for me to blame the refs, but I feel like this is something a lot of people are bringing up. So this is something I need to, talk about. But as far as I'm concerned, like, yeah, the refs weren't in your favor, Ohio State. You still needed to out physical. You still needed to be tougher. And, you had guys who are in foul trouble, but you still have to move on and get through those situations. I did feel like Ohio State was aggressive. That's something that I like. This was not a team that was tentative. So if you're gonna lose, you'd rather lose by being aggressive than being tentative. But that's just me. So big thing for Ohio State though, free throws. You have got to hit your free throws to close out the game. Devin Royal missing those 2 free throws in a row later on in the game, like you can't do that. That is absolutely you cannot do. So, all right, that was a big game that I think many people were talking about, and a lot of people who listen to the show, Indiana fans and whatnot. But yeah, John says when Aaron Bradshaw hit that 3, I thought it was over. Yeah. Yeah, I thought Aaron Bradshaw looked like who he should have looked like in that moment, but he's one of those ones that I'm talking about. He didn't match the physicality, I felt like, of Indiana. And credit to Indiana. They were more physical. And if I'm an Indiana fan, it's a great win for Indiana. I'm feeling great about our chances after this. Chance to go back, play Oregon again. John, if I'm you, buddy, I'm feeling really, really good. So congrats to you. Samuel says, JR, 2 of the 7-12 conference record teams, Northwestern and USC, lost today. If Iowa wins tomorrow, which 7-13 conference record team would miss the Big Ten tournament? All right, I was doing this today, and I got the wrong thing out there, and so I put misinformation out there. So I'm going to try and really fast make sure I give you guys the right stuff. Okay, so tomorrow we have Michigan State versus Michigan, Nebraska versus Iowa, Rutgers versus Minnesota, Oregon versus Washington. I don't think any of those games will impact one another just because of the 7-13. Rutgers, Minnesota might, right? But let's go ahead. Let's just say if Iowa beats Nebraska, right? If Iowa beats Nebraska, they will be 7-13. Let's calculate what goes on. If that happens, then you would have Nebraska missing the Big Ten tournament. You would have Rutgers at 8-12 and Minnesota at 7-13. Iowa would be your final seeded team, and Nebraska would miss the Big Ten tournament. Now, if I go back and I choose Nebraska instead of Rutgers and I calculate that, same thing. Nebraska is still out, and Northwestern is your final team to make the Big Ten tournament. Minnesota is 8-12. Rutgers is 7-13. So it doesn't seem to matter here, Samuel. As long as Iowa wins tomorrow, that's the most important thing. If Iowa wins, Nebraska is out of the Big Ten tournament, which is crazy. But if Nebraska wins, they will make it. I don't think Rutgers and Minnesota is impacted. Yeah, if Nebraska wins, Iowa is out because they're 6-14 altogether. So things only get crazy if Iowa wins. If Iowa wins, Nebraska is out. If Nebraska wins, Iowa is out. Well, I shouldn't say they only get crazy then. They don't get crazy either way. That's how it goes. So I hope that answered it for you there, Samuel. John said, we're feeling great after the win, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous throughout the game. I watched the game with my in-laws, which was an interesting experience, and they were nervous the entire time. They were pacing around and like, oh, this is just what Indiana does. Indiana's gonna lose, and part of myself was smirking a little bit, but then the other part of me was like, yeah, this is also what Ohio State does too. They kind of have a hard time, but yeah. So Kent says, want me to jump on? I don't know how long you've been going already. I've been going about 20 minutes. If you want to jump on, Kent, I'll send you the link. I'll do that really fast while I'm talking here. Let's see. We'll talk about the next game. Penn State. If Kent comes on, I'll just bring him on right away. So appreciate that, Kent. Penn State defeats Wisconsin. A huge upset. Penn State taking down Wisconsin was really, really fun to watch this game. Not so much because I was rooting against Wisconsin. I wasn't really watching it, but just because of the effort and everything that Penn State was giving overall in this game. I really felt like Penn State they were playing desperate all game long, and it was really, really cool to see, especially after, we had our talk last night about Mike Rhodes and does Penn State need to move on from him. Like, to me, this is confirmation that Penn State and Mike Rhodes is building a really good culture at Penn State with what they're doing. I just realized I sent that to your phone. I need to send that to your Twitter account. I apologize. I will fix that really fast. All right, so like I said, it was really, really cool because I do think this acknowledges that Penn State does have like a really good culture, and I think that Mike Rhodes has instilled a lot of really good stuff into his guys. Penn State did a really good job in this game of obviously hitting shots. This is one of the biggest deals of why Penn State won this game, was because of the shot making and what they were able to do. Let me pull up the numbers here really fast. Penn State in this game, they shot from three 58%. They were 11 of 19 from three in this game, which was absolutely huge for them. 31 of 55 overall. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like, yes, Wisconsin fans can say they just did a really good job shooting really well. But I thought Penn State also did a really good job of getting Conan Niederhaus to do some really interesting stuff down low with his physicality, with what he was able to do against Stephen Crowell. Looked a little shaky there at one point with how Nolan Winter and Stephen Crowell. There's Kent. Kent, I was just saying, this Penn State game, early on, it looked like, Stephen Crowell and Nolan Winter were going to kind of have their way with Conan Niederhaus with how they hit those 2 threes right off the bat right away. But then Niederhaus started going down low, and Wisconsin just didn't have an answer for him. And I felt like that was what kind of opened up the 3-point line for Penn State to be able to start hitting those threes a little bit more. I guess first talk about that, but then just talk about overall, like Penn State's upset win here, how crazy that is.
Yeah, insane. First of all, I thought they have nothing to play for at all. They're not fighting for a spot. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yep, can hear you.
Not fighting for a spot in the Big Ten tournament. They literally are playing for nothing. They had no reason to go up to Wisconsin today and even try. Haven't won there in 40, 30 years, something like that. So insane that they won in general. But yeah, Conan was great. Down low today, I thought he played awesome. And really, you and I have talked about Penn State a lot this year, that this team is more talented than what they've shown. And it was like one of those games, and I've said this about a lot of teams in the Big Ten this year, it was one of those games where we we finally got what we thought they could be, and it was like their ceiling game, like the best that they could play, and Wisconsin just couldn't keep up with them.
Yeah,
Crazy though, insane.
yeah, it was crazy. Samuel brings something up I was going to bring up later on, but Max Klesmit, he didn't play in this game, been out for a few games now. I did not check on his status and when he's coming back. I'll check on that really fast here in just a minute. But I mean, Kent, what'd you think, man? Did you think it was a huge thing? I thought it was huge that Klesmit didn't play in this game. Like I thought this is an offensive piece, this is an offensive weapon that Wisconsin not necessarily needs, but it just really helps their offense be able to do what they do so well with getting the ball moved around and everything. Jack Janicki, like he was a nice piece, but he didn't have a great game in there. His numbers 0 for 3 from the field, 0 for 3 overall, 4 fouls, 3 turnovers. So he didn't have a great game. I felt like Klesmit could have done better than that. But what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought when he was out for the Michigan State game, I thought it was because he was out for that game too, right? He's been out for
Mm-hmm.
3 games now.
Yeah.
Or did he play again? I thought he was like ready for Minnesota for some reason. But when he was out for the Michigan State game, I thought it was a massive deal because I thought that they needed like all hands on deck, basically. I thought they needed that to go win that Michigan State game. And obviously the outcome was not what they wanted to begin with anyways. But I think he could have been helpful in that game, could have changed it a little bit. Today, they should not have needed him, though, like at all. They have enough guys and enough depth, even without him, that you should be able to win on senior night or senior afternoon, whatever you want to call it, in the Kohl Center against a team, like I said, that hasn't won there since 1995 and is fighting for literally nothing. You should be able to win that game without Max for sure. But he is important though. Like he's a big cog to their, they're a big piece to their puzzle, I guess is the easier way to say it. So hopefully he's back healthy next week. And if not, especially for when they gear up for the following week in March Madness.
Yeah, I just looked up Thamel because I thought he had tweeted about it, but I wanted to double check to be sure. He will play in the Big Ten tournament, they said.
Good.
So, or Thamel said. So, he'll be back for that one. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like you need Klesmit back in this lineup, even if he's not 100%. You still need the threat of what he can do offensively to bring him back into this lineup. Kent, I did want to ask you. So Mike Rhodes was asked about playing in another tournament later on, and basically he said like, no, they're not going to play any other games. They're not going to play in another tournament. Like he really he really kind of talked down the fact. I guess not talked down, but just had pretty much no interest in the NIT or the college basketball crown bid or anything like that. He felt like the season was over and he was non-committal about postseason play. Obviously, things can change. Maybe the team comes to him and says we want to keep playing, but I mean, do you think this would be the right idea by Rhodes? Like, do you think this would be a bad idea? What do you think?
I don't see the benefit at all.
Yeah.
I go back to just a few months ago when football season was ending and teams were like fighting for a bowl game. It's more practice. Like the season's not over. You're with your guys more. You can still build that like team environment and build the atmosphere and the culture. I don't know why you wouldn't want to keep compete as a competitor. You should always want to compete, right? Even if it's not for the ultimate like prize, which would be the national championship, and you're not in that tournament. I think that, I think it's unfair to the fans too. Like, they've been following this team, the ones that have been supporting this team through a really bad year for them, like which shouldn't have been that bad. You're just gonna say, we're giving up. I don't like that at all, man. Like if I'm someone on that team, I want to play. If I'm a fan, I want to see my team playing still, even if it's in a tournament that's not as important. Still want to go see them. So yeah, I don't like that at all. I didn't hear him say that. I wasn't aware of that. But any coach that says that, I heard somebody saying that Northwestern wasn't going to accept an invitation to the crown as well. Like, I don't understand this. Like, go play, go compete still. I don't get it. Be with your team longer. What are you going to do otherwise? Just like not practice and start recruiting and trying to get transfers? I don't know what you're doing otherwise. What's
Yeah,
the
I mean,
benefit?
I think the benefit is the transfer portal, right? You get a head start on that and being able to go out there and try to get different players. I mean, we already have some players declaring they're going to enter into the transfer portal, so you have that opportunity there. And although we know nobody technically tampers, we still know that agents talk and agents of players and stuff like that try to get their information to them. So if Penn State knows they're looking for a defensive minded point guard to replace Ace Bailey, then, they're going to put that out there with the agents. We'll see, what happens here, but I'm with you. Like, even if you can't put max amount of effort into the Crown or the NIT or whatever it is, like if you're offered a bid, it just kind of looks soft if you don't take it.
Yeah.
Like you got to go for it. You got to give your fans something to cheer about, something to play on. I don't know if they'll get the bid. That was kind of surprising to me that people were saying like because the Crown, I looked it up. They guarantee two teams from the Big Ten, Big 12, and Big East, while the NIT's criteria, has changed for 2025. They're gonna, be different than the Crown. But if you only have two teams from the Big Ten go into the Crown, then you're looking at probably like Nebraska, Northwestern. Like it's still a couple teams down before you get to Penn State, and I think those were the two teams they had in the graphic today. But and I don't see either of those teams saying no. Like Nebraska, Northwestern, both of those teams seem like guys would be like, heck yeah, we're gonna go play in this and do our absolute best.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. So, and I also read, I was in a group chat earlier on Twitter, and somebody was saying that the Big Ten teams are like contractually obligated to participate if they get an invitation. So I don't know what the teams even can really do.
That would
Like
make
just
sense with Fox. Yeah.
yeah, like they're just not going to show up or what? Like if they get an invitation. And also, let me just read you this real quick. Mike Rhodes, the head men's basketball coach at Penn State University, earns a base salary of $3.4 million last year. It increased by $100,000 this year. So $3.5 million this year. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that he can handle the Crown Invitational and the transfer portal at the same time. I'm just going to say that with those
Yeah,
two
I think
facts
you're right.
like mixed together.
Yeah. He gets paid enough. He could do transfer portal and Crown.
I think he can do both. I think he can handle that
Yeah.
for a couple weeks. I think he'll be okay.
What do you think about the Crown? Like, you think it's gonna take off? You think it's gonna, contend with ESPN and their NIT and stuff like that? Like, I do think I'm pretty sure they're playing for money. I'm pretty sure. Like, I do think that's gonna be an incentive for them. But overall, like, I mean, I don't know how two NIT tournaments are gonna do. There's already people who are apathetic about the NIT in general. I don't know how a competing NIT is going to do compared to another one.
What's funny is on Monday, you brought up the Crown in the Power Rankings episode. I didn't know what it was. Dead serious. I know we probably talked about it like last summer, like a little bit. It completely left my mind. I hadn't thought about it until you brought it up again. And if you go back and watch that episode, when you mentioned it, you could see the look on my face. I was like, what did he just say? I don't even know what that is. So I don't know. I'll watch it. I will watch any basketball, though, postseason basketball. I'll probably fill out a Crown bracket. Why not? Let's get the Crown bracket challenge going. See who can win that. How many teams are even going? You have to inform me right now. How many teams are invited then?
Let's see. I have the information here in front of me. 16 team. It's a 16 team. Well, I wanted to make sure I had this pulled up because I knew we were going to talk about it with Penn State. A 16 team tournament that features the top two remaining teams from the Big Ten, Big 12, and Big East conferences. The remaining 10 spots are filled with at-large bids from all conferences.
So it's like a little bit better than the NIT. Then it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think it's the NIT with like guaranteed spots for Power 4, Power 5 schools.
Yeah, I'd like to think like, again,
but not the SEC. That is so funny. Not the SEC and not the ACC though.
Neither one of them are involved.
No, it's just the Big Ten. Well, they can be, but they're not. Given guaranteed
they're not locked
spots.
into 2 spots.
Yeah, it's just the Big Ten, Big 12, and Big East who are on Fox.
I think it'll be fun. Like I know it's not going to be as important because the other tournament's going to be taking place. I'd like to see them. I'm assuming they've already thought about this, but the games taking place like on the off days where the tournament's not happening. That has to be when they're playing, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what the NIT does. So
okay,
yeah, it makes sense.
So yeah, I think it'll be cool.
Which will give us more Big Ten After Dark content. So sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if I was a team that was close, right, like one of the first 2 teams out of the Big Ten that didn't make the tournament, I would want to go prove that we belonged in the tournament and just go blow out everybody in the Crown. Like again, as a competitor, and not most of them, all these guys that are playing basketball at the Big Ten level are competitors. That's what they should want to do, and that's what I'd like to see from these teams. So, should be fun.
Yeah,
I'm fine
for
with it.
sure. For sure. I'm a fan because last year I talked about the NIT in addition to NCAA tournament, and there were people who watched the show and they were like, we appreciate it that you're talking about the NIT because nobody talks about it. Like we care about our team in it. Like we know it doesn't really play for much, but we still want to want to do it. If honestly, if it wasn't for the crown, I'd probably just do like an NIT After Dark podcast in addition
That'd
to
be
the
awesome.
Big Ten, just because there were so many people that liked it. But with the crown and the NIT, I got a job somewhere else. I can't be
Yeah.
doing three podcasts for three different teams every night.
I was
So
surprised to see you on tonight, and I saw you by yourself. I was like, I got to get on and help him get through this one, man. It's hard to do it by yourself.
yeah, I was doing okay, and I do I had all my notes and everything made out. So, but the biggest thing is you don't get a rest for your for your breath
Yeah,
and stuff like that. That's the hardest
for
part.
sure.
So, Philip says Crown is in Vegas and during the Sweet 16. Is it going on the same time as the games of the Sweet 16 though? If they're doing the games the same time as the Sweet
Yeah,
16, like that's just
that
bad,
is
bad
not a good
idea.
idea
But
at
I mean, if
all.
it's at the same, you know,
And
same
he's saying the
time they're
whole
there,
tournament's going to be done in like one weekend then, or one week.
I think it's all done in Vegas. I don't know if it's all done in the same weekend, but I think it's all done in
Interesting,
Vegas. That's the way they've been saying it. So
interesting, interesting.
yeah. All right. You want to talk about Maryland and Northwestern?
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
always want to
man,
talk about Northwestern. My cats. I
dude.
thought Northwestern looked okay today, honestly. Like,
I did
I
too.
know they weren't able to get the win. I'll start with them because that's my squad. So, lost, whatever. All the Northwestern people, we were all just UCLA fans today, anyways, because we needed Northwestern to get into the Big Ten tournament. And so, really, it was a win for Northwestern no matter what. But, Martinelli looked good today. I thought that, I'm trying to think of who else. Like, Mullings looked okay. I thought that they played fine. They're just, they are what they are at this point. They're outmanned, especially against a Maryland team that it seems like everybody now has jumped on the Maryland bandwagon and is saying they're going to the Final Four. I feel like you and I were like early bandwagoners to Maryland. We've been talking about them for a while, but everybody's with us now. And, I thought Northwestern competed really well, especially like really tough environment, a weekend game at Maryland, and they had a basically a sold out crowd, but Maryland was just way too much. I tweeted out, I kind of want to get your comments on this after you talk about the game, and I feel because I got a lot of pushback for it, and I understand why from some people, but I said that Julian Reese is like arguably one of the most improved players in the conference since last year. And somebody brought up TKR, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's the guy for sure. But he's still right up there. But it was interesting to post that during this game because a lot of people were saying that it's Nick Martinelli, which I agree with. But Nick Martinelli got asked to do a lot because of the circumstances at Northwestern. He had to be what he was this year. Julian Reese didn't have to be better. He got a lot more help this year, especially down low. And I just thought that, like, what he's been doing the last few games defensively, if you want to watch somebody play really good defense, which a lot of Big Ten fans love defense, turn on a Maryland game and just keep your eyes on number 10. Like, dude is awesome on defense. He's really fun to watch, and great game from him, obviously. And then the other guys, I mean, it was Northwestern, so it was a win they should have had, and they got it, and it was a kind of a ho-hum one. I'll be honest, I fell asleep like the last 5 minutes of this game.
Yeah, the last 5 minutes, Maryland started pulling away. But I mean,
Yeah,
I got to give Maryland credit. Like in a game where I mean, it was just coming off that Wisconsin game, right? Like, which they don't know, they weren't paying attention to Wisconsin, but we just saw Wisconsin lose to Penn State. Like, I was going into this one after that. I was like, okay, I said on the show last night, like it's March, anything can happen. These teams
yeah,
should win. And then very first game of the day, Penn State upsets with Wisconsin, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, what's going to happen here? I mean, Northwestern they battled really well with Maryland in this one. They were up for parts of the first half. I think Maryland eventually took the lead 32-29, but man, they were up for parts of the first half of this game. And so I was like, okay, Maryland, I was like, okay, Northwestern, like,
yeah.
yeah, you do you, like, you guys are doing a good job here. Eventually, though, Maryland pulled away because that's just what Maryland does, and that's who they are. Which, by the way, 6 bench points today from Maryland. which is 24 minutes overall. Overall, like that's not for one player. 24 minutes overall for their entire bench. I apologize. I forgot Deshaun Harris-Smith. He had 14 minutes in there too. So what's that come out to? Like 38 minutes overall for their entire bench, but that was all three players. This one. So really, really continuing to hone in with the Crab Five, which I love. I'm a fan of the Crab Five. But
I don't understand why Jordan Geronimo and Harris Smith aren't giving them more off the bench. Like those are not like you could have worse players coming off the bench. I feel like those guys could give them more, and they're just not this year for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, you remember last year, Deshaun Harris-Smith was starting. I was looking for this year for him to come out and like maybe improve as a player, but no, like he Cam Heidi'd this game based off of
Come on,
the
man.
Purdue game.
You hate Cam Heide, dude. Why do you keep talking bad about him?
I was told Cam Heide was going to be the best player in the conference, and
That's
now he's
true,
out here
though.
scoring 2 points on 20 minutes. So like, I'm just saying, like.
I was
My
listening to you and
expectations
Sonny
were up here, and they've been down here. Like the reality was down here. So
the other night when you had it was when you had Sonny on, like the late show after the Illinois game. You're like, I'm not gonna say his name, and then you're like, whatever, it's Cam Heide.
listen. It's a no. Don't put these huge expectations out for players if they're not going to meet them, because CJ
I don't know
Cox
if you
has
saw
been
this
better.
though, but in the
Miles Colvin has been better.
national championship game last year, though, he did have a really good dunk. Did you see that?
No, that's probably why I didn't get the hype, because I didn't see it. Yes, I saw it. It's what everybody sent stupid replays of the entire time. So I was like, okay, good. Like you see Miles Colvin's dunk in that Illinois game. Good for Miles Colvin. Does that mean he's going to score 20 points a game? No, scored 2 points that game. That dunk. That was it. So
How do we get to Purdue? We're talking about
I don't
Maryland's
know.
bench right now, dude.
I
Come
don't
on.
know.
Let's
I
refocus.
was just comparing Maryland's bench to Purdue's role players, which I know Purdue fans are loving this comment. They're not listening. Their team didn't play today. They're not listening. Yeah, no, I think Martinelli was huge for them. I do feel bad for Martinelli. Like, what with him losing Brooks Barnhizer and Jalen Leach and all that stuff, like. I think a lot of people are going to look at Northwestern this season and be like, oh, well, had them pegged right. They're near the bottom of the conference, and, they were chosen last by pretty much all of Big Ten media and stuff like that. But if you actually pay attention, this coaching job by Chris Collins this year to just get Northwestern into the Big Ten tournament after losing Brooks Barnhizer and Jalen Leach, like they're out here like playing Jordan Clayton 20 minutes a game. They're out here playing, Windham nearly 30 minutes a game. And no disrespect to those guys, but they weren't supposed to be playing those minutes this year. Like they were supposed to be just giving them some minutes. And Chris Collins has got these dudes, albeit they lost today, but they're still in the Big Ten tournament.
He's also got Ty Berry, who just like consistently inconsistent.
Yeah.
Inconsistent. That's the word, right? Consistently inconsistent. That's Ty Berry to a T. I thought that also, like you were mentioning some of the first half stuff, when Matthew Nicholson went out with his second foul, that's when like Maryland started pulling away in the first half because they have no depth, like down low. They have him basically to guard the rim, and that's it. And like once he got his second foul, it was like, oh man, this is going to be trouble. And same thing you just talked about, like in that last game with Penn State. They could start getting it down low, and it wasn't just the fact that they could score down low like late in that first half. It opened up everything else, and then the three-point line's open, and then like Maryland just starts going on a run, and it was just too much for Northwestern. Like I said, you need Ty Berry in games like this to give you 25, like and he can do that, and he might do it next week. In the Big Ten tournament, he might show up and be like Superman all of a sudden, and then the next game you'll forget that he's on the team. So. Just not enough consistency, not enough depth from Northwestern. But like you said, Chris Collins just doing his best, consistently the best coach in the Big Ten every single year. So, yeah, good for him on that. But just tough year for Northwestern for sure.
I didn't tell you, but I was at birthday lunch today for my wife with her family before they went to the IU game, and I said to him, you guys should hire Chris Collins.
Dude, they're talking about it big time.
And my brother-in-law looked at me and he said, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, you should hire Chris Collins. Like he's a really good coach." And he was like, "Northwestern's coach?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Give me Chris Beard." And I was like, I don't know, man. I was like, I don't know. Chris Collins, I think he might be better than Chris Beard. And he was like, I think you might be crazy. Like he was not about it at all. So,
That's odd because first of all, like if you're a big IU fan, I feel like they all follow the Big Ten like pretty closely. So I'm surprised that he's not like, oh yeah, I know Chris Collins and he's great. I feel like a lot of people respect him, but I've heard way too many rumors about that. Like it's starting to feel like it might come true.
John, not a fan of the Chris Beard situation there. You imagine, like, you saw the way the fans treated Terrence Shannon Jr. in the Big Ten. You imagine what the fans are going to do to Chris Beard? Like, that,
I can.
yeah, it's not going to be pretty.
I can't imagine
You
it.
thought Indiana fans were mean to Mike Woodson. Like, just go to Purdue, see what their fans are going to say. Go to Illinois, see what their fans are going to say. It's not going to be pretty.
Do you think there was any truth to I don't want to get off topic on that, but do you think there was any truth to the stuff from last night with Illinois?
I don't know. I mean, like,
Like a one-off person like that could exist in any fan base.
well,
I feel
yeah,
like,
yeah.
but
Like, I mean, if it was like the entire student section was doing it, it's like, but I felt like Illinois handled it the right way. Like they were very apologetic and they were public with it and like they didn't deny it and like do all this stuff. Like they were just like, yeah, we probably need to do better. Like not them like what they say, but like security wise and some of that stuff. And you
they're
could tell
great in
like,
the aftermath. Like they'll hang a jersey upside down and be like, "That's on us. That's on us. That's my bad."
yeah, that's true. But as far as I'm concerned, like, you know, it is what it is. Like it sucks. You don't want those kind of stories to happen, but that's
Yeah.
we're not going to invalidate Illinois' win because they had a stupid fan.
Yeah,
Like,
agree. I hated to
so
see that last night on Twitter though. I was like, "Come on, man, let's just talk about basketball." And
yeah,
not that it shouldn't be talked about. It should definitely be like brought up and addressed. It just sucks that it happened, like you said. Like I hate that there's people out there like that. It sucks.
yeah, it does suck. Um, do we want to say anything else about Maryland before we move on? I mean, Derek Queen got a tech in the game, but he had a double double. Like Julian Reese, I agree. One of the most improved players. Free throw percentage is one of the biggest things for me. I like 11 and 13. Like he was like a 50% free throw shooter last year, and now he's going here going 11 for 13. Like he's
He's
added
over
that
70
dimension.
this year. He's
Yeah,
over
like
70%. Yeah.
to go from nearly 50% to over 70 in one off season, like I mean he added that dimension to his game. That's incredible in my opinion.
Yeah. Huge for them. I like Maryland a lot. Like I said, been on the bandwagon for a while. I'm on a lot of bandwagons though, so don't get like it twisted. I'm still on the Wisconsin bandwagon. I don't care what happened today. I think they're still really good. Um, but spoiler for next week, I'm going to be on Lockdown Spartans and we're going to be talking about like a team from each day, like a Wednesday team, a Thursday team, and a Friday team from the Big Ten tournament. I think Maryland's going to be my Friday team. Like, because the obvious choice is Michigan State, but it's on their podcast, so I'm going to do something different. I like Maryland a lot. I think right now they're still in line to get either the 2 or 3 seed, depending on what Michigan does tomorrow. I'm not sure, but either way, like it doesn't matter. Those two are probably going to meet in the semifinals, and I like Maryland obviously way more than Michigan. We just saw what they did at Michigan, and I think that they match up well with Michigan State. We just saw that game like a week and a half ago, and Michigan State wins on a 70-footer. So Maryland's legit. Don't be surprised if you see Kevin Willard on the stage in the middle of Gamebridge next Sunday afternoon holding a trophy.
Boy, that what a arc for him. He'd go from the joke of the Big Ten Huddle to winning the Big Ten tournament. That'd be quite the arc there.
Yeah. It would be. We'd be
would.
forced to like respect him going forward, I think.
We would. Quick reminder before we talk UC. Anything else on Maryland before we talk UCLA?
No, that's good. Yeah,
USC?
I think that's enough.
Okay.
Yeah, they're great.
Go check out CB Analytics. Use code HUDDLE HUDDLE for your $30 off CBB Analytics. It is great. I mean, Kent posts about it on social media and stuff, or on X, Twitter, those kind of places. It gives you charts, gives you graphs. Not only that, but it does a really good like game recap stuff. One thing that I appreciate about them most is they give you like game by game like stats of not just the players but the teams too. Like you can't find a lot of the stuff that they give you here anywhere else. Like if you're a football fan and you have PFF, you're going to want to get CBB Analytics because it's basically the same thing for basketball. They don't do like the grades for players, which I appreciate because I think the grades on PFF are generally, not always great. But what they do is they give you enough stats and stuff like that that you can kind of figure out your own grades and how players do. So they do a great job. Check them out. CBB Analytics. Use code HUDDLE HUDDLE for $30 off. All right. Kent, final game of the night. UCLA defeats USC 63 or 90 to 63. Honestly, I don't know how much I have to talk about on this game other than UCLA good, UCLA motivated. We saw Bilodeau and Mara in there together in that lineup early on in the game. I thought that was cool to see. That was one of the things with UCLA I've been kind of wanting to see, but we hadn't really seen, and they did really well together. UCLA, though, they came out in this game from start to finish. They were just the more aggressive team. They were the team that wanted it more, and you could tell these UCLA players have been at UCLA longer than the USC guys because this rivalry meant more to those guys than it did the USC guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect recap. I don't know if I can even add anything to that. From the minute this game tipped off, the crowd was involved. The players were feeding off the energy of the crowd, which you don't always get in a UCLA game. Their crowds are not always the best. They're not horrible, but they're not always the best. But the energy in the building, you could just feel it even just watching on TV. And, another senior night. So big deal for everybody that's involved with all of that. And it just felt like every play early on, the momentum just never left UCLA. They were getting steals. They were Eric Daly's just so nasty, man. Another guy that he's very much like Julian in that way where you want to see a guy that just tries hard on every possession, both ends. He doesn't always make the right play. He makes mistakes every once in a while. He did it a lot offensively tonight, actually. But the only reason I noticed so many of them is because I'm glued to this guy. He wants it so bad. And he was great on defense, picked up a lot of steals, especially early on that led to baskets. And UCLA was just suffocating tonight at both ends. It was a Mick Cronin, I was going to say a weird word, but it was a dream for Mick Cronin. A great defensive performance that just turned into everything was working offensively up until the last minute. They started making some weird mistakes, but they had backups in. Just a great game for UCLA. And again, this is a game that you'd like to see from them because they were playing for something tonight. And when teams are playing for something, that's when you want to see their best performance. Exactly what we got from UCLA tonight.
Yeah, and USC was playing for something too. They were playing to make the Big Ten tournament. And I mean,
no, that was over.
No, Iowa loses tomorrow. They're in the Big Ten tournament, aren't they?
I don't think so. I think it's just Iowa and Nebraska now. I'll double check while you finish that though. But I think it's over though. I think Gus Johnson said, because I checked this right before the game tipped off, Gus Johnson said that they're not being relegated, basically used the soccer term. It was one of his things in the intro. And he was like, I'm just kind of kidding, but they will be in the Big Ten tournament. That was before tip off.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was because they won their last game or whatever.
Oh, okay.
It was only Northwestern, Iowa, and Nebraska going into today that had a chance to be out.
Okay, yeah. Well, I did some of the stuff at the beginning. I think it's just Iowa and Nebraska.
It is now, yeah.
Yeah, with the stuff. So, yeah, no, but I mean, at the end of the day, this UCLA team is scary. And I have not said that about Mick Cronin teams a whole lot, but the combination of Bilodeau and Daly and Sky Clark, who would have thought Sky Clark would be the dude that he is? I know Illinois fans didn't think he would be, but he's doing a great job this season. Was a little concerned with Mara only playing 14 minutes in this game, but maybe Cronin's saving him a little bit more. I don't know. But the dude had 14 points in 14 minutes, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, only 1 foul. He did have 2 turnovers, but overall, give Mara as many minutes as you possibly can. I get why he doesn't. I get you need, different guys in there for different things, and you can't just play Mara all, 25, 30 minutes, but I'm putting this, if I'm Mick Cronin, I'm putting this guy in there as much as I possibly can because Mara is just an absolute beast. On the other end, USC, I mean, at this point, if I'm USC, I'm just trying to figure out which players I want to stick around for next year, right?
I know one that they need to stick around, and that's Wesley Yates. Like he's
Well, they
incredible.
need Claude too. They need Claude to stick around as well.
Claude's been, I don't know, man. Like I know, like I'm looking at the box score. When I look at the box score, it's like, okay, he had 15 points. That's great. I didn't think he had a good game tonight. Like he just seems like an absentee player. Like the last, I would say, like the second half of the season. Like he's had a few like outlier games where he's played really well, but from what he was at the beginning of the year, and like in that Michigan State game, in that Illinois game, like go back and watch that Illinois game where they beat Illinois and Desmond Claude was unstoppable. He is stoppable now. Like he just doesn't seem like the same guy. I don't know what happened the last, I would say like 4 weeks. I don't know. He's just not been that impressive to me. Like I said, yeah, he had 15 points. He almost had to. Like if he doesn't score 15, it's going to be a 50-point game. Like he had to get those points, but like you're right. You're absolutely right. They need him back, but they need him back like to where he was at the beginning of the year next year. That's what they need for next year.
And I'm almost wondering if he comes back next year, maybe he continues to be that player like all year long. Like did he possibly drop off because of the way the season was going and stuff like that? And obviously you don't want that to be the case. You want guys, and I don't know if it's an effort thing, but maybe just the way the season was operating and, kind of losing hope and what you could do that year and stuff. But at the end of the day, like I think he's going to be a senior next year. Like he has scoring ability. You can't make Wesley Yates your only scorer on the team. You need to bring somebody else in and have them be a scorer for them. And maybe you bring somebody else in overall, but I think you already have Desmond Claude on your team, so you might as well keep him and, hopefully he can come back and be a leader for next year. But yeah, so
I wish
anything
they
else in
could
this
bring
game?
I don't know if he has another year of eligibility or not, but AG is so good. I like him a lot. He had 2 points tonight, so this is a horrible night to say that, but in their previous game, I can't remember who they just played the other night. Do you remember who that was?
No.
Okay. He was on fire in that game though. And like USC looked like a completely different team in that last game that they played.
Yeah, AG is a graduate student, it said, so
Yeah, okay. Darn it.
he
I
won't
like
be
him.
back.
I like
So
him. I wish him all the best.
that's a tough final regular season game. Maybe I'll have a better game in the Big Ten tournament.
He seems like I've never met him, but he seems like a nice guy. I don't know why I'm saying that, and it doesn't apply to the basketball whatsoever, but he seems like just like he's going to be a good guy going forward in life. I don't know why.
It's
I like him.
because USC retweeted you that one time.
Yeah, it's all because of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the retweet USC gave me like a month and a half ago. That's why I like Rashawn Agee. Sorry.
AG.
They needed more
Call
from
him
him
now.
tonight, though, big time. It's funny because he scored their first 2 points and that was it.
Yeah,
Then
1
he
for 6 on the
disappeared.
day, 0 for 1 for 3. Yeah.
And it was an awesome bucket he got too. I think it was an offensive rebound, like did like a little spin move, bodied somebody, and got a layup. And I was like, okay, there he is. There's my guy right there. And then just disappeared the rest of the game.
One more thing to ask, and then we'll probably be done after this. I will say USC did go on a 9-0 run to end the game, so they didn't lose by
Yeah,
30
I know
because of
Mick's
that.
gonna lose he's gonna lose his mind about. As I was watching that, I was like, this is going to be a main focal point for the post game interview for sure. He's gonna be so mad at those backups because Clark Slajak came in and scored, like went on a personal 5-0 run, and they got a couple buckets or whatever. I was like, Mick's gonna lose his mind. He's gonna go crazy about that.
I can't wait for the Mick Cronin press conference after the fact. Which, by the way, did you see Tom Izzo's press conference after they won the? Yeah, dude, he was living in glory, man. He was living in glory. I love these coaches' press conferences.
Earned it.
He did. Last thing I'll ask you about, then we'll be done with this. Kobe Johnson, 2 points on 28 minutes. Now he's been pretty efficient, so he hasn't been the biggest scorer, but he's been pretty efficient. But tonight, 1 for 4, 0 for 3 from 3 fouls for Kobe Johnson tonight. You concerned?
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not, because Mick's in control. So I think that he'll look at the tape and he'll say, "Hey, Kobe, this is what we need you to do better." And he's still a massively important part of their team, like going forward for the rest of the year in the postseason. Defensively, mainly, like I don't think that they're super relying on him to, provide that many points. I don't think they need him in double digits for them to be successful. So
yeah,
I'm not
he
too
just needs to be
concerned
efficient
about it. I'd have to look at like some of his numbers the last few games and like see how efficient that he was, but I'm not concerned about that at all, though. I feel like Mick. I'm going to answer it like Mick would say. Not concerned. Not concerned at all. We'll get it. He cares. He cares. That guy cares.
Oh man,
Like he doesn't let people answer. I love Mick so much, man. He does not let people like. If someone was like, "How concerned are you about?" Not concerned. Not concerned. He's fine.
Mick was the best coach conference addition to this conference out of all of them. I mean, like Eric Musselman, he can be kind of funny sometimes, and like Dana Altman's like the sweet old guy who has kind of the drawl and stuff like that a little bit. Maybe not the drawl, like that's the wrong way to put it, but just the way he talks. But yeah, Mick was definitely the most entertaining.
I got two more quick things before we get off this, and I'll be quick, I promise. First one, Musselman. Did you see my tweet about him earlier today or no?
No, I'd not been on
okay,
Twitter
good.
Too much.
That's better though. Guess how old Eric Musselman is, like just randomly.
42?
Yeah. That's about what I would have said. He's 60 years old.
No way.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
Yes. Or no, I'm not kidding. Sorry. Again, another another pregame nugget from Gus Johnson. He was like, Eric Musselman, 60 years old. I was like, he got that wrong. Let me Google this real quick. I Googled it and I was like, how? And then I tweeted that out. I said, I would have said 47 on the high end. Like that's the highest I would have went with Eric Musselman, 47 years old. And then my second thing real quick too, speaking of Twitter, people go follow me at Casual Big Ten. I did just tag you in a tweet that I had to run back from last August, where you and Russ were, not you as much, but definitely Russ, were laughing at me that I said that UCLA would finish in front of Purdue this year in the standings. And now that it's finalized, I would like my flowers right now. Not right now, on Twitter though, right now.
No, I agree. When you said that, I was like, I don't think so. And then I saw the Bilodeau edition and some other guys, and I was like, okay, I kind of see, like, they didn't really have the offense last year. Like, Bilodeau did a good job at Oregon State. Maybe he can help provide that. But what I did not see coming was just the overall offensive nature of the team together. Like, Daly, Clark, Bilodeau. Like, Bilodeau's not, they have to rely on him 100%, but he's a nice addition for this team to operate on offense. And, Sky Clark, I didn't think Sky Clark would be anything for UCLA. That'd be a good piece, maybe do some good not even good piece. Like I thought he might do some good things every now and then, but I didn't really think he'd be much for him because I just didn't think he would fit Mick Cronin. Like I thought Mick Cronin would bring him in and be like, oh, this is a test subject I can bring in, but it wouldn't go well. Sky Clark's thriving at UCLA, and good for him.
Yeah, I'm excited. They got a double bye. I can't believe it that it shook out this way, because there was a stretch there in the middle of the year where I was like, man, I'm not going to be able to clip that show and make fun of Russ, but now I am, so I'm happy.
I guess I didn't realize it, but Eric Musselman didn't get into college basketball until he was until he was like 46. His first year in college basketball was as an assistant at Arizona State.
Wow. Somebody tweeted me. Actually, John said something about this to me, that his dad used to coach somewhere in the pros.
Yeah, he was in the pros for a long time. He was with the Minnesota Timberwolves in 1990, and then he went to go play for the Rapid City Thrillers, Florida Sharks. That must have been the old basketball. And then Magic assistant, Hawks assistant, Golden State Warriors head coach, I guess. It doesn't say assistant. And then Grizzlies,
Eric Musselman?
Kings. Yeah.
Interesting.
Then he went to the G League, and then he went from the G League to Arizona State as an assistant. Became the associate head coach at Arizona State, LSU, and then it was Nevada, Arkansas, USC.
That dude has been everywhere in the country, man.
Yeah. He's not just been and he also played overseas too. China, USA, Dominican Republic, Venezuela.
Is Eric Musselman the most traveled man in the Big Ten?
He coached in China. I apologize. He coached there. He didn't play there. Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's even more impressive.
This just became an Eric Musselman podcast.
I wonder if he knows Chinese. If I meet him in Indianapolis, I'm gonna say something to him in Chinese.
Yeah. He played at San Diego. That's where he played at. So, yeah.
That's right.
Ohio born, though. Was born in Ashland, Ohio. Maybe he can be Ohio State's new head coach.
How many states has this man lived in? Nevada, Florida,
I don't know, man.
California,
He's one
Ohio?
international man too. He's been
Jeez.
Venezuela, Dominican Republic, China. Like,
Good for Eric.
yeah, yeah.
I guess when you're around for 60 years, though, it kind of happens like that. I couldn't believe that, though, man. I was like, there's no way this man's over 50 years old. He looks
Well,
great.
what's crazy is he never stayed anywhere longer than like 2 or 3 years. Like his longest stint was at Nevada and Arkansas. Oh, okay. I apologize. The Rapid City Thrillers. He was there from 91 to 97. So that was when he was young, though. He wanted to settle down when he was young.
Is that in
And then
Iowa? South
no,
Dakota.
Rapid City Thrillers,
South Dakota.
and then the Florida Beach Dogs.
Oh,
is what
Florida
they-
beat Florida. Never mind.
Yeah. Okay.
I just typed in Rapid City and South Dakota came up.
Yeah. Well, he
Dude,
could
it
have
looks
lived in South
their
Dakota.
their
for all we
logo
know.
looks like it was made in Microsoft Word.
Well, it was also from the 90s, so
So it may have been. I gotta find a picture of Coach Musselman with the Thrillers. That's my sole duty tonight.
Chris says still remember Rutgers was ranked at the beginning of the season. That was crazy. That was crazy. I did not remember that, but I do now.
They should have been ranked all year.
Oh yeah, after that Kennesaw State loss, yeah.
Yeah, that we didn't know it at the time, but that was like a big sign for what the rest of the season was going to be like. I thought it was just like a one-off. I was like, oh man, that's a really bad loss. They'll figure it out. Nah.
Hey, they're in the Big Ten tournament though. Good for Rutgers.
Which, like, I guess that's an accomplishment.
Listen, there's 3 teams that aren't, and you best believe those 3 teams are more mad than the teams who are. So
That's true. Oh my gosh.
maybe
his
not Penn
hair.
State. They just beat Wisconsin. So
Musselman's hair in this photo. I'm gonna send this to you after we're done.
all right, we should probably be done podcasting now because the last 10 minutes have just been us talking about Musselman and
Yeah.
him being in
for sure.
China and Florida and everything else. So. All right, everybody.
We have to do one tomorrow though, man. Like I'm free now because my family left for spring break, so I could come on to tomorrow with you to talk about the BTT. By the way, if you're doing it,
I think I have Frank tomorrow.
okay, yeah, I'll be here in the chat then.
Okay, you'll be with me Monday morning. We'll do our final power.
Oh, that's
Is it
true.
going to be
Yeah,
a
we
final
got
power
Monday.
rankings?
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier. Like, is there a point?
I mean, there's not really a point, but it's just fun to talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
It's gonna be tough. If Michigan wins tomorrow, it's gonna be impossible.
are you going to put Illinois over Michigan?
I am right now, unless Michigan wins. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like that'll really mess it up.
But Michigan State doesn't move off number 1. Even if Michigan wins, Michigan State's still
No, I agree, but it's more the Michigan Illinois talk though.
Yeah, because my order right now is Michigan State. They stay number 1 no matter what. Even if they get 40 piece, they're still number 1. Because I'm just gonna say they didn't care, which
Yeah,
you know.
which they should.
And then it's probably them, Maryland. I don't know. Illinois might be 3rd now
I think so.
with
I think
Wisconsin
so.
losing.
No, I think that's for sure what it is right now.
Yeah,
Like all things considered, I think it's for sure that order. Like Michigan State, Maryland, and then Illinois for sure. Like no one else is in front of them. It can't be Purdue. It can't be Michigan. Like who else?
UCLA.
UCLA. Ooh, they might have some
They
talks
could be
about
3rd.
that. They could be 3rd. What if I have to look at like their results lately?
But
though.
Illinois also beat UCLA. So if we put UCLA 3rd and Illinois 4th, we're gonna have so many people in our mentions talking about. How
Oh
we don't
man, and
care
how
about
bad
which
would that
teams win.
be? Like if Illinois fans were mad at us, that'd be terrible for the ratings.
So terrible. All right. We'll see what me and Kit get up to with our shenanigans. Tomorrow night, me and Frank the Tank from Stat Tank, that is, from Boiler Express, going to be on here talking Big Ten tournament. Probably won't talk too much about the games. Like if Michigan wins, I'm sure we'll talk about that. If Iowa wins, like we'll talk about that because that'll shake things up. But for the most part, 8 o'clock tomorrow night, we'll be talking about the Big Ten tournament, the games, the matchups, everything going on. Might even have me and Frank make a bracket together live that night, so that'll be really fun. But overall, anything else, Kit, before we get out of here?
I have a small suggestion for everybody. If you're like me and you only have 2 real life friends, do a Big Ten tournament draft. And this is how it works. You and 2 other people, guys or girls, you pick in a snake draft order. Yeah, it could be a girl. That's fine.
See your wife could do it.
But what? Yeah, anybody's wife could do it, honestly.
Yeah.
But you do 5 rounds of picks, and this is why it's actually better this year because you get 3. Wait, is that right? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15.
Yeah,
Yeah,
15. If you
yeah,
have
yeah.
3 people.
5 rounds. Everybody gets gets 5 teams, and what you do is whatever their seed line is, you get a point that many points every time they win.
Mm.
So that's why it's better to draft like middle. I don't know, middle of the road is kind of tough. Like the 8, 9. Like if you're really confident that like Oregon's going to beat Indiana, you're automatically getting those 8 points or whatever it is. They're 8, right? And Indiana's 9, or is it the other way around? I can't remember.
Indiana's 9, Oregon's 8.
Okay, so yeah, if you think that Oregon's going to win, or if you think Indiana's for sure going to win that game, you pick Indiana, you get 9 points, and then if they get another upset, you got 18 points with one team right there, and you just keep track of the points throughout next week. And it's a little bit better way than just doing like a actual like just filling out a bracket, I guess, because no one does that for conference tournaments. And it's easy too because it's only 2 other people than you that are keeping track of it, so it's easy to keep track of the points.
Yeah, for sure. All right, there you go. There's a good idea for you. We weren't going to set up a website or anything. If we were really,
Nope.
good at this, we'd do something like that. But
Yeah.
fancy Big Ten. But no, we're just going to tell you to do this instead. So thanks so much for being here, Kent. Thank you everybody for listening, watching, whatever you did. We appreciate it. Come back tomorrow night, 8:00, and then check us out Monday morning. Me and Kent, Power Rankings episode. We'll be right back here on the Big Ten Huddle. See ya.